Hello all and welcome to the official FanTeam podcast brought to you by FanTeam, the biggest daily fantasy site in Europe. My name is Andrew and today I'm joined once again by fantasy football expert Mark McGettigan, aka the FPL General, a very fresh-faced FPL General as well, Mark. For anyone who caught our Euros pod last week, Mark has halved the volume of his head. How are things going, Mark?
I'm doing well, Andrew. Yeah, I had to stand in a queue for about 45 minutes yesterday to get the hair and beard done. As soon as Ben had a go at me last week about sending Rangers up this way, I said, right, time to take some action and get rid of the homeless look. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to see my face again. My wife is certainly happy. She kissed me for the first time since February today, so it's all good.
It probably took another 45 minutes to get all that hair off as well, Mark. It was... I think
he certainly earned his money yesterday, that barber.
Did you have any luck, Mark, on the weekly monster in Gameweek 30 at all?
Not last week. I think I had 2 teams entered, and it was fairly templatey teams.
Okay.
Things didn't go my way last week, but the beauty of FanTeam is fresh slate this weekend, and hopefully it can go on better.
Okay, and it's wildcard time in FPL and the season-long FanTeam game. Apologies for bringing this up for FPL, Mark, because I know you didn't have a good weekend last week. Have you wildcarded yet in your season-long FanTeam games?
I'm actually wildcarding in all of them this week. I've got 4 teams. Cool. To be honest, I've kind of forgotten about those teams for the last maybe 2 or 3 game weeks, and I forgot I still had wildcards for all of them. So I'm going to do that tonight, probably sit down tonight and do the wildcards for those 4, and hopefully can get some of them into the money before game week 38. Hopefully those wildcards are a bit better than the FPL wildcard last week.
You want to tell our watchers and listeners your a tale of woe? What, last week?
Yeah, so it was. I went a week early. Like most people, I was going to go game week 31, and I just decided it felt right to go a week earlier. Just opportunity to try and get one over the game week 31 wildcarders. Went triple Chelsea, no Salah, got rid of Watkins, got rid of Diaz. So I mean, it couldn't have went much worse really. That West Brom game, I couldn't believe it. I was out with my wife and I asked her to check the score after the game. She said 5-2, and I just couldn't believe it. I'd asked her twice. I asked her what was the real score. She said, "No, it really was 5-2."
West Brom scored twice.
Safe to say, I did. Exactly. Safe to say, I didn't watch too much Premier League football over the weekend after that. So yeah, but again, it's only week 1 of the wild card, so the same team could score very well this weekend. So hopefully they do well over the final 8 game weeks.
We have all been there, Mark. I did a free hit 2 seasons ago, where my free hit team scored 38 and my original gaming team with no transfers would have scored 85. And I'll never forget as long as I live. It's just one of those things. It's it happens to us all. Even the best in terms of so for our YouTube watchers, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, to press the like button if you enjoy our content. So let's just take a quick look at last week's winning team. So this is the team on screen now that won the Game Week 30 Weekly Monster and scooped an amazing £6,750. I'll run through it very, very quickly. It had Fabianski in goals for West Ham. They played Wolves. He had Maguire, Robertson, Tyrone Mings and Ruben Diaz at the back. Lingard, Redmond, what a pickup Redmond was. Salah and Bertrand Traore. And to finish off, a 4-4-2. Harry Kane up front and captain Diego Jota. What are your takes from this win, Mark?
Yeah, my first impression on this was, most weeks in the Monster I do check top 5 teams at the end of it to see what teams have won big and how they were set up. And my first instinct on this one was it's quite different to what you would typically see at the top of the leaderboard, because quite often you'll see a lot of triple ups in teams that win it from certain teams. But this is kind of a bit of a mixture, which I like, because it just shows you there's different ways to win the Monster. Some very interesting picks in there. Jota, obviously, what a hero coming off the bench. It's amazing. It's an amazing story to have. You can say you won the Monster with Diego Jota as captain. Didn't start the game, but he still got 18 points. Yeah, Lingard, Redmond. Redmond looked really good in the FA Cup game previously, so maybe this manager had eyes on that one, which was a shrewd pickup. Himself and Armstrong looked really good. and both did really well last week then. So yeah, it's certainly an interesting team, like Tyrone Mings, picking up a random assist from open play, which doesn't happen very often. And I always like as well seeing the winners having a couple of players that didn't do much. In this case, Maguire and Fabianski. It always gives me hope that you don't have to nail all 11 picks to come out on top here.
I remember as well with Redmond, end of last year, he went on a really good run at the end of last year as well. He seems to be like he's a bit Patrick Van Aanholt-esque. They tend to do really well in the last 8 games of the season and do pretty much nothing for the rest of it. But yeah, that was team, and many congratulations to the winner last week. So our feature tournament for this podcast and video is the Gameweek 31 Weekly Monster, which has a prize pool this week of a whopping £67,500. We will be running through the game week's applicable fixtures and sharing our entries with you. So our watchers and listeners, for what the Weekly Monster is, it's very similar to the free hit chip in Fantasy Premier League. We've basically picked the best 11 players for the game week that you think will score the most points. So briefly, the rules: you build a squad of 11 players, including at least 1 goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 2 midfielders, and 1 forward. You can select as a maximum of 3 players from any one Premier League team. This is for Game Week 31 only. There will be no wild cards or player price changes. You have a budget of 105 million to build your 11-man team. You pick a captain and the vice captain. Your captain scores double points, as it did for Jota for the winner last week. If your captain doesn't play, then your vice captain will replace him. Safety net applies. If a player does not start, you'll be replaced automatically, if possible, by a cheaper player from the same club and position, and player prices do not change. So for those watching on YouTube, the point score matrix is now on screen. As you can see, it is very similar to the season-long fan team game, and indeed the Fantasy Premier League game. Mark, interested in your thoughts, with teams and players now, we're getting to the end of the season, they're getting a bit tired, a bit fatigued and stuff, and teams this week such as Liverpool and Chelsea, Man United, maybe Arsenal, having big European games coming up next week. Do you think we should factor in potential rotation when picking the Game Week 31 teams, or is the safety net enough to help us build, an optimal team?
Yeah, I think we probably should keep it in mind, but that's the safety net. Safety net feature is probably one of my favourite things about FanTeam because it takes the stress away. You can gamble on a player that you wouldn't buy in FPL if you've got a rotation worry over them. For example, Marcus Alonso. You might not want to pick him in FPL because of rotation worry, but you go for him in this because if he doesn't start, you're going to get a pretty decent Chelsea defender in as a replacement anyway. So when I was building this week's draft, to be honest, I don't think I factored rotation into it too much, mainly down to that safety net feature.
I think the one thing I would say is maybe if you're tossing it between a couple of players, is maybe go if you can for the slightly more expensive one, because what you don't want, if you go for the cheapest Chelsea defender, as an example, doesn't play, you'll end up likely either having no player, or a bit of a rubbish one. Whereas, if you can afford someone who's 0.1 or 0.1, who's 0.1 or 0.2 more each week, if you are concerned about rotation, then that is probably something to bear in mind. Definitely something I do now every week, because I was caught out on the one week where I didn't have a replacement, and if I'd have just gone for someone, I think it was 0.3 million more, I would have had in like a 9-point or something. So that was very disappointing.
Yeah. A good example actually of that is for the midweek. I was playing the midweek Champions League game, and I wanted Jota in most of my teams that I was putting in, but I knew there was a chance. I thought it would be either him or Firmino up front, and on FanTeam, Firmino was a little bit more expensive. So if I went for Jota and he didn't start, I was going to be left without a player. So I actually put Firmino in most of my teams, and then automatically got Jota in when he was in the starting 11. So that's just an example of how that works.
Perfect. Okay. So there are 3 full round weekly monster tournaments every game week. This week, one has a prize pool of £11,250 with a guaranteed first prize of £1,350, which you can enter for as little as £1.80 for this week. There's also a free entry to this competition for new FanTeam users. If you do fantasy and wonder all the fuss is about, head to fanteam.com, register for free, and play that tournament for free. So you get a bite of a cherry of a first prize of over £1,000. Well worth just having a go. It is great fun. There is a high roller tournament also. If you want to play for big money, for our feature tournament for this podcast, it is £67,500 the £67,500 prize pool game with a guaranteed first prize of £6,750 for just an £18 entry. The teams we pick can be used across all monster tournaments this weekend. Just a reminder to enter all fan team contests. You must be over 18 and be gambleaware.org. So this game week, we have 8 Premier League matches applicable for this contest, starting with Liverpool against Aston Villa at 3 o'clock GMT on Saturday, followed by Crystal Palace entertain Chelsea at Sellers Park. And then on to Sunday, Burnley play Newcastle in the early kickoff. West Ham play Leicester. That should be an absolute cracker, that game. I'm looking forward to that one. Followed by another cracker in Spurs against Man United. My team against your team there, Mark. Sheffield United play Arsenal in the evening. And then on Monday evening, West Brom host Southampton before Brighton take on Everton. So, Mark, look at those fixtures. Which ones will you be targeting this week?
Yeah, I think it's not too tricky in terms of fixtures this week. On paper, there's probably a few that are easy to avoid. I'm probably looking at Spurs, Manchester United, West Ham, Leicester. Probably 2 games that could go either way. So when it's 50-50, I tend to avoid because I like to go after those impact points and try and back players from teams who I think are going to win at the weekend. So you're looking at Liverpool, Chelsea, probably going to back Burnley as well to beat Newcastle, Arsenal. Probably arguably the best fixture of the weekend against Sheffield United. And, Southampton as well, even though West Brom ruined my weekend last weekend, I think Southampton have been much improved recently, and I'm probably going to back Southampton to beat West Brom in that one as well. So, yeah, Brighton Everton's probably a little bit tricky to call as well.
Yeah.
I think that could be a draw possibly. So I might not have too many from that one.
It is worth pointing out that the Friday evening match between Fulham and Wolves and the Saturday lunchtime kickoff between Man City and Leeds are not applicable for this contest. Yeah, I largely agree. I do think with West Ham and Leicester, while I do agree, in terms of impact points, I think there could be goals in that one. You got Lingard, he's on form. Obviously, Antonio looks like maybe missing now, and Declan Rice may be out, which may invite Leicester on a bit. Leicester are on form, they're scoring goals, so I do think there could be a couple of goals in that one. I think I might have a player or 2 or even 3 in that one. Spurs Man United is a tough one because both teams are playing really well, and both teams, especially Spurs, in Harry Kane, I mean, he's just on fire. It's very difficult to back against him, and you would guess actually that he'd be quite reasonable in price this week due to the opposition as well. Agree with West Brom and Southampton as well. And Arsenal, they're a funny team, Arsenal. They're just so inconsistent. They either look superb or they look absolutely dreadful, don't they? So, some really interesting fixtures there for sure. And so with this in mind, we have now got Mark's entry on screen into Weekly Monster this week for Game Week 31. Mark, would you mind running through your team and your thoughts for our podcast listeners?
Yeah, so as usual, when I build my drafts for FanTeam, I'm looking at a couple of stacks. I'm trying to get a couple of double ups in there, a couple of triple ups, try and go after those impact points initially for the teams I think are going to win. So I think I started with Chelsea in this one against Crystal Palace. Good result for them against Porto in the Champions League, so I expect them to beat Crystal Palace this weekend. And hopefully for me as a triple defensive owner in FPL, it can be a clean sheet. So I've gone for Mendy in goal, and I've gone for Alonso, and I've stuck the captain's armband on as well. He didn't play midweek, so I fancy him to start against Crystal Palace. And we know when he's on the pitch, he's capable of anything from 10 to 25 points, really. So, at least one of my teams this weekend will have Alonso captain. And again, like I said earlier, if he doesn't start, it's not the end of the world. I'll get another Chelsea defender. I'll just make sure I've got a solid vice captain, which I think is going to be Danny Ings. So going for a Chelsea double up in defence. There's also a double Burnley defensive picks there, Tarkowski and me. So I'm targeting the centre backs, and I've put Dwight McNeil in alongside them. He'll be taking has been taking the majority of Burnley corners recently. So the hope there is McNeil swings one in and one of the centre-backs sticks it in the back of the net, and hopefully they keep a clean sheet against Newcastle, which I think is very possible. So double Chelsea, double Burnley at the back, alongside McNeil in midfield. I'm going after Southampton, like I mentioned. Fancy them to beat West Brom, so I'm going triple Southampton attack.
Wow.
Redmond, Armstrong, and Danny Ings. I think all three looked really, really good last weekend, so I'm hoping they continue that. Hoping they score 3 or 4 goals, and all players are involved in getting attacking returns. And then I've contradicted what I've said when I was looking at the fixtures. I said I usually avoid games which could go either way, which is what I feel about West Ham and Leicester. But I do agree with you that there could be goals in that game. So rather than a triple up, I've gone for a double up on Leicester. I'm going to back Leicester to win that one. And I've gone for Vardy and Maddison. I actually considered tripling up, putting Iheanacho in there as well in place of Calvert-Lewin. So Calvert-Lewin in this team is probably the one position that could change. It's up for grabs. I've got about 9.1 million, I think, to spend on a striker. Could be Calvert-Lewin, could be Iheanacho if I go all in on Leicester, or it could be someone else completely. So yeah, that's one of my drafts for this weekend's Monster.
That's really, really good. I whenever you're on, Mark, I would look at your draft and I look at my team and I think, I'd rather have Mark's, but I love the way you play the game in terms of attacking very specific fixtures. As soon as I brought it up, I was like, yeah, I'm maybe not as bullish on the Saints, kind of scoring 2 or 3 or 4 away at West Brom. I do think West Brom have improved massively. Southampton are quite inconsistent, but I agree with you on Burnley, definitely. McNeil is I think he's such a good player. I think he could play for, and obviously no disrespect intended, but I think he could play for a better team than Burnley. I think he could play, in a top 6 or 8 team, and yeah, I really like that idea of McNeil swinging the ball onto Tarkowski or Meahead, and similar with Maddison then as well, when he was massively on form when he got injured, and Leicester was scoring a lot of goals as well. So I think he could be a really good shout. Really nice team. I'm very jealous, Mark.
Yeah, I've gone Danny Ings with a vice captaincy there as well. So obviously there is slight risk involved in captain and Alonso, but I'm pretty sure Danny Ings will start there. So I like to have, if I'm going risky with a captain, I like to have a pretty secure vice captain, because if you're left without a captain in this game, you can say bye bye to winning any cash.
I think Alonso was quite unlucky last week. I know it sounds stupid to say unlucky because they conceded 5, but they only conceded 5, obviously, because of the sending off. But Alonso, he had one, cleared off a line. I think he might have hit the post as well, and he was so.
I think I think he might have hit the woodwork twice last week.
Yeah, he was very, very unfortunate. I was as a non-owner in all formats, I was counting my blessings really, because he was all over the West Brom goal, in the first hour or so anyway. But then sending off completely changed the game, obviously. Moving onto my team, so I have gone for a double up at the back as well for Burnley. I've gone for me and Taylor. The only difference there, Taylor was 0.1 more than Tarkowski, so that kind of safety net sort of thinking there, that if Taylor doesn't play, it just goes onto Tarkowski. Taylor, has got maybe a bit more, attacking threat, from playing out wide than Tarkowski, kind of, relying solely on corners and stuff, aren't you? But they're kind of much for muchness there. And similarly, I've gone for Chilwell, but again, Alonso is the next one down as well. So whichever player starts there at left back, whether it is Chilwell or Alonso, you would expect either of them to score really well there. So I've gone for Chilwell, but he's 0.4 more. And in goals, I've kind of sacrificed a bit of cash then. So I do this every week. I know you're against this, Mark, but
you love your cheap goalkeepers.
I love our cheeky with every single week. It just allows you to kind of flood the midfield and attack. I've gone for Martinez. Liverpool against Villa, I think, is a really good fixture for Martinez. Safe points, actually. Martinez is such a fantastic shot stopper. I think Liverpool will win. I think they'll win 1 or 2-0 or 2-1, but I could see Martinez. He tends to make 5 or 6 saves there, every single game, and if he does manage to keep them out, and get a clean sheet. He could be on for a monster haul there. So I think regardless, you're on for 2 or 3 points, and you're not just relying on a clean sheet there. And for 5.6 million, far cheaper than the vast majority of the keepers there on show. Gone for a 3-4-3. So in midfield, I've got Salah at home to Villa, at home to Martinez. And I've got him as captain as well. I like what I saw of Salah last weekend against Arsenal. And even midweek against Real, he looked to be a lot more involved, playing a lot more centrally as well than he has been over the past few weeks. Liverpool seem to have turned the corner a little bit, and even though Villa, I think, have kept ridiculous, something like 14 clean sheets in the league, the fact that Martinez has to make so many saves all the time still indicates that they're going to have plenty of chances. And Klopp and Liverpool are just going to have to go for it. They have to go for the top four, especially now, obviously, that they are behind in the Champions League against Real. So I fancy Salah, Jota, and O to really be up for this game. In midfield, so I've gone for a Southampton player. None of yours, interestingly enough, but I've gone for James Ward-Prowse. I just think he's a fantastic player. On set pieces, very central to everything they do. I know he wasn't involved in the goals last weekend, but I still think he's one of their key men. 9.2 million, I think he's a decent price. Gone for the in-form Jesse Lingard, who I've managed to escape in every form. I haven't got him in any fantasy format all the way through because I refuse to believe that he can keep it going. But this is the perfect format to have a go, right? This is it. Well, he scored. What's he scored in his last two? Like 14 fancy points and 12. There's no way he can keep it going. With Antonio out, but yeah, he's 8.5 million, purely a form pick. West Ham are playing well. In fairness, I put him in there, and I've gone for cheapie in Pereira for West Brom against Southampton. Again, what a player he is. This is probably more of a form pick than a fixture pick, But to score 5 away to Chelsea, and we mentioned it before we started as well. I know they're playing 10 men. All their goals were really classy goals, and he had 2 goals, 2 assists. Again, he's involved in everything they do. He's on penalties as well, so I think 8.2 million. He looks a really, really good pick there. And up front then, so I've gone for Harry Kane at home to United. I mentioned it earlier, 9.4 million. It's not very often you get Harry Kane at that price. He's in the form of his life. I think United are going to find it very, very difficult to contain him, and I can see him scoring, and he's currently my vice captain. I've gone for Vardy, the same as you, away to West Ham. We know that they've lost a couple of key players. I think Ogbonna's out as well, still, as well as Rice. They're maybe a bit weaker at the back. They tend to concede a few goals, West Ham, at the moment. I think their expected goals conceded the last few games hasn't been the best, so I do expect Leicester to have chances. So I think Vardy, he's been a bit quiet of late with his Nigerian counterpart up front, stealing all the headlines. But he's still a class act, still on penalties. And finally, I've gone with someone who I haven't picked all season. I can't believe I'm picking him actually, but Chris Wood, Burnley, home to Newcastle, a 9.1. I think actually looks a really, really good price. Newcastle were markedly improved. They were embarrassing against Brighton in Gameweek 29, but they showed up last week against Spurs. Chris Wood scored. He scored a penalty, didn't he, against Southampton last week? He's always a danger. He's always a threat when he plays. So that finalises my 11 there. So I'm just looking in terms of partnerships. Really, I haven't got a lot. So I've got the only triple up I've got is Burnley. And I think that's about it. I think every other player, I'm taking inspiration from last week's winner, Mark, in terms of kind of spreading the risk a bit. But any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, even though you've spread it, I think it's a pretty good team, and we've seen from last week. There's a lot of different ways to win this contest. So I really like the Chris Wood pick. Actually, I think the draft I built initially, I think I had Charlie Taylor, Ben Mee, and Chris Wood, and then I changed it around to go for McNeil. But I think in one of my drafts this weekend, I think I'll go for a Chris Wood captain. Actually,
yeah, do you know what?
I think he's looked really good. passed the eye test in recent weeks. He's scoring goals. He's on penalties, and he's got the fixture. So I think all the stars are aligning for Chris Wood to do well this weekend. So Q a 2-pointer, but I will captain him in one of my teams this weekend. I think it's interesting as well. Neither of us went for Arsenal players. I don't think you've got any either.
Oh, I think it's the kind of risk of Europa. I think they've got some fabulous players. Saka is a player I rate so highly, but I don't know if he's going to play or not.
Yeah, I just felt as well when I looked at them. Obviously, the first two that come to mind are probably Lacazette and Aubameyang, 12.8 and 12.9. It feels very expensive when you can get Kane at a good price this week. Danny Ings, Vardy. So I'm just not convinced they're worth the outlay. Again, might have them in one or two teams, but not in the majority of teams this weekend. And I think looking at your team as well, looking at my team, I've got no Liverpool, which I try and play without fear in this monster, because I think very often to win it, you have to go against the grain. And I imagine most people will automatically pick one or two Liverpool players. So I guess I'm hoping there that Martinez does have a worthy of a performance and keeps those Liverpool guys quiet, and that I can get one over by not having any Liverpool assets. So yeah, I'm probably not going to go and try and squeeze one in here.
Well, yeah, no, all makes sense, and this is what makes these weekly monsters really good fun, right? Is there's no real optimal team. There's no way of you're picking the best team. It's kind of what you think, and we see it kind of time and again. The random sort of captains, the random picks, etc. Pereira last week, for example, would have probably won most people, got them in the cash and stuff. So I just think that this is all part of the fun is going with what you think rather than what you think you should be with. I think that's the whole thing. These monster thinking are absolutely superb. I'll definitely be entering 2 or 3 teams this week, and I'll definitely be mixing it up and taking on on board your advice on a few players, sticking in this one and maybe mixing it up, as you say, maybe stick the captain on Wood, or maybe Pereira, or someone like that. He's clearly a man on form. We'll see.
What I've been captaining Pereira all bloody season on FanTeam, and then
the 1 week
you don't obviously you're not going to captain him against an amazing Chelsea defence. So he wasn't in any of my teams last week, and I was fuming. That I lost my triple clean sheet in FPL, and I was also fuming that I didn't have Pereira in any of my monster teams, because he's been an ever present. I like doubling him up with Diang, even though he hasn't scored too many goals this season, but they're always good value. So yeah, it was a painful one last week.
Absolutely. Okay, so finally, if you haven't seen it already, we have some incredible news to share with you. FanTeam are pushing the boundaries even further this summer with a £1 million Euro 2020 FanTeam fantasy competition with a completely life-changing and astounding £200,000 first prize for just 4 weeks of fantasy football. There are a couple of videos on this channel already. Mark and I are on one to talk you through how it works, and you can sign up and start drafting your Gameweek 1 team right now. So what are you waiting for? Mark is very excited for this contest. He's cancelled his summer holidays, his summer leave. He was going to have a break in the summer, but he said in the video, it's all canned. £200,000, 50 grand a week, Mark. Like, I know you earn a lot of money. You can't earn anywhere near that kind of cash, no?
Absolutely, I wish I could, but like I said in that video that we did, if I win this Euros tournament, if I win the 200 grand, I'm just going to retire. I think I could make 200 grand last me for a good number of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm buzzing for it. I can't believe the cash that's on offer. So I recorded every World Cup qualifier from the international break. I've got them all ready. Once the Premier League season's over, research begins for the Euros tournament.
I've got my son on the scouts, and my son is he's 10 years old, and he is mad for the football. And we got him a Euro, like a sticker album. He gets the sticker album. So I told him, I said, listen, you do a bit of research for me, I'll buy you 10 packs of stickers. And he's like, oh yeah. So he hasn't started it yet, but I've said, right,
he's going to draw up your watch list for you then.
He is. I said, from each team, I want to know who the captain is, who the best player is, who the top scorer is, who scored the most in qualifiers, who the nailed on defenders are. So I've given this big list.
That's great. That's a nice little project for him.
He'll love it. You know, he'll love it. It's hardly a task for him in all fairness, but yeah, little bit of family bribery there to make sure that I am I'm really well prepared.
You've got to get it. You've got to get your edge. No, it doesn't matter how you get it.
This is it, mate. And if I finish above you, it'll be my 10-year-old son's research that has done it, Mark.
Made the difference.
Exactly. Okay. So that is it from us for this episode. And all the links are below for all the games we have discussed. Don't forget, for this week, there's also that free entry to the £11,250 tournament for new FanTeam users. So head to FanTeam.com to register and play that tournament for free. The Euros tournament is also open. What are you waiting for? Get stuck in. It's an absolutely incredible tournament. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining me this week. We'll have you on again very, very soon. Any parting words of wisdom from the General?
Yeah, my main advice always to people for the Monster: have fun with it. Go against the grain, especially if you're only entering one or two teams. Go differential, because that's what will get you the big money.
Chris Wood. Go Chris Wood. Remember that if you liked what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you're listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast, give us 5 stars, and leave us a comment. So this podcast will be available as a video on the FanTeam YouTube channel, and also as an audio version on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Just search for Official FanTeam Podcast. Our website is fanteam.com. Our Twitter handles are at FanTeamOfficial and at FanTeam_UK. Give us a follow for regular game updates and for entry giveaways for lots of other FanTeam competitions. We will be back very soon, looking ahead to the Gameweek 32 weekly monster, hopefully with a lot of cash on the hip from winning this week. The very best of luck for Gameweek 31. Goodbye for now.